will call to order. Ms. Jasinski, please call the roll.
Sure. Mr. Grippo?
Here.
Ms. Hallen?
Here.
Ms. Ham?
Here.
Ms. Harrigan? Mr. Martelli?
Here.
Mr. Perugini? And Mr. White?
Here.
Mr. Chairman, you have a quorum.
Thank you. Let's see. Well, first on the agenda, we have audience. Is there any commentary on this meeting this morning?
Nope, not since not in the last 10 hours. We haven't received any budget info.
Okay, thank you. Next on the agenda is the Standing Committee of Curriculum and approval of the Peck Jones funds. Mrs. Ham, do you have a report? Uh-oh.
You're
You're
on mute, Faith.
Faith, you're muted. Uh-oh. I think she's waving us off. It's like.
Use the text box.
Good. Okay. I have
Yeah.
two meetings to report. The curriculum committee met on Monday, January 19th. I'm sorry. I'm so early in the morning. Committee members present were Faith Ham, Ann Harrigan, and Tony Perugini. Staff present were Mary Gadd, Kevin Hanlon, Michael Early, Marlene Solano, and Maureen Reed. Faith Ham called the meeting to order. Michael Early, director of the Cheshire Public Schools K-12 art program, gave an overview of the 5-year curriculum review by the CPS Curriculum Council of the district's art program. Under the new program, the students will create their own works and then respond and connect to them by explaining both orally and in writing how their art conveys meaning. Finally, students are expected to present finished works. The instruction more closely aligns with CPS's performance-based standards than did the prior art curriculum. Okay. I'm sorry, I've got something going on in the background. Oh boy. Next, you guys, can I, I'm sorry, Adam, can I pass for now? I just got to get myself organized and something's going on here. You're on mute.
Why don't you have Marlene?
Yeah, Marlene
Yeah,
said she
Marlene,
could fill
if
in
you
for you.
could. Yeah. Sorry, I got to step out for a minute if I could.
Okay,
Thanks.
go ahead, Marlene.
Okay, good morning. I believe
Morning.
the meeting that we need to recap is actually the meeting that was held on May 11th. Again, Faith and Ann were both there. We talked about a new textbook recommendation for advanced placement, which was forwarded to the board. We talked about the OLSAT results. Also, Kevin Hanlon gave an overview of the Lost Links, the Memorial Day music events. That was one of our meetings. The most recent, give me 1 second. The most recent meeting was on June 8th. Faith and Ann were at that meeting. We talked about the Peck Jones request, where I presented a proposal on how to use the Peck Jones grant funds this year and had made a request for the money to be used for quality reading materials in our school, our classroom, and our school libraries, especially whereas we gave lots of books out this year. We don't know that we will be receiving all of those back. The other thing that we wanted to do was to increase the amount of nonfiction text in the primary grades, as well as do an audit of culturally responsive texts that are available throughout the libraries. Dr. Gadd presented on Digital Media Foundations class, which was through UConn, and that we are now looking to partner with Naugatuck Community College on. Dr. Gadd also presented on the business courses that we are articulating with Tungus Community College. And lastly, we talked about the remote learning tools that we would need this year, where we were going to, after looking at some efficiencies, find both essential software tools that we needed to run the curriculum if we need to be in a remote setting, as well as distribute iPads to our kindergarten students and Chrome tablets to our first grade students. In that plan, we would also be able to distribute devices to teachers. And that was the entire meeting.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Let's see. So we have a motion to, looks like, approve some funds. Faith, are you ready to go?
Yeah, I'm sorry about that. I do have a motion here. Again, forgive me. Trying to go between screens, forgive me here. Oh, God. Technology.
Do you want me to read it? I have it up.
Yeah,
Okay.
please. It's
Then I will move that the Cheshire Board of Education approves the use of Peck Jones funds in the amount of $28,600 to enhance the availability of quality reading materials in the classroom and school libraries for students in grades K through 12. Do I have a second?
Second.
Catherine seconds. Is there any discussion? Seeing no discussion.
No, yeah.
Oh, Mr. White, go ahead.
Yeah, so Vin, I'm just, or Marlene, I'm just curious, what's the balance of the Peck Jones Fund? Did you mention that? I'm sorry if I missed it. Just a ballpark, not specific numbers.
I want to say $600,000, and we're allowed to take, I believe it's 4% per year.
Okay. All right. Yeah, so that makes sense. Okay, thank you.
Is there any additional discussion? Okay. The motion on the floor is that the Cheshire Board of Education approves the use of Peck Jones funds in the amount of $28,600 to enhance the availability of quality reading materials in the classroom and school libraries for the students in grades K through 12. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we've got, looks like 6 votes, so that's unanimous for those who are here. No opposed. Motion passes. Thank you. Okay, finance report. As far as the finance committee, we've not met in a little while. I think our numbers have been set for a bit. So I guess, Vin, I'll hand it over to you for some
Okay.
updates.
Thank you, and good morning, everyone. I'm going to share my screen and go through the next couple of sections on the agenda. Hopefully, everybody can see the medical benefits update on your screen, yes?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
This is the medical benefits update as of May 31st. If you take a look here, you could see that the most recent claim month of May was $909,000 in claims. You know, this year we were looking for an average of $750,000. So, you know, that claim month is higher than, you know, what we would have expected this entire year. In fact, if you look down in the lower section, our average monthly claims this year have been $869,119 per month. What's driving our claims is primarily some very large claims for just a handful of individuals that have benefits through the Cheshire Public Schools. You could see that, you know, on a year-to-date basis, we've decreased the medical benefits reserve balance by $1.27 million due to claims. However, if you look up at the top section of the report, you'll see that we did receive $475,644 in stop loss reimbursements. And so those are for individual claims that exceed $175,000. COVID claims on a year-to-date basis through May are under $3,000. So just, kind of keeping in what I've been reporting previously, this is not COVID claims that are driving this year's claims. It just is it's one of those years where large claims do predominate our medical benefits volume. The ending balance in the reserve is $2,470,090 as of May 31. We have one more month to go in the claim year. I believe June claims will likely be relatively high again because of some of the large claim activity that's continuing to come through. But I do expect that we will probably receive another $50,000 or so of stop loss reimbursements in June. So, despite the fact that we had a large claim and a large decrease in the trust fund balance, we are ending, at least May, with about 3 months of claims reserve, which is where we'd want to be. I mean, we were higher, but, we'll certainly take ending at 3 months and, hope for a, better claim year next year. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen for a second. If there are any questions from board members?
I'll go first.
Okay.
And please put your questions in the chat box so I can determine order, please. Thank you. So Vin, for the funding levels, I know that we had, if I recall, increased funding levels for fiscal 2021. Will that take effect, I'm guessing, on July 1?
Yes.
Or is that's not reflected in this report, correct?
No. So the increased funding, we increased the funding to medical benefits by about $350,000 for fiscal year 2021. So as we make deposits to our medical benefits reserve, that monthly amount, will be reflected in the medical reserve contributions. But yeah, that's not reflected yet.
Thank you. Let's see. Ann, go ahead.
Yeah, so along those lines, Vin, can you remind us, because I do remember, but could you remind us of what we're doing with our deposits, because it's less than what we did last year, and are we still on track for what we were thinking due to, ending the year a little bit lower reserve than we anticipated? Are we still going to be on track with depositing the lesser amount this coming year?
Well, we are depositing, a little bit more every month next year. The question is, will it be enough to meet our monthly claims? So, for next year, just from memory, we'll be depositing somewhere in the neighborhood of $720,000 per month. This year's claims have been averaging $870,000 per month. But again, being driven by large claims. So if our claims do normalize, down to that 700, even if it's $750,000 a month level, we'll have enough reserves to carry through 2020, 21. So it's, I think the board remembers, we did try to increase the funding even higher than what was ultimately approved, but we're relying on reserves, I think, next year again. And so I always cross my fingers when we start a new fiscal year and hope for the best. we did and you'll see that in a minute, you'll see that we did add another $30,000, to the medical benefits reserve as we close out this fiscal year. That was, at the end of the day, that's what we had available to deposit. So again, I'm hoping that we normalize. It was really an unusual large claim year. The $475,000 in stop loss reimbursement does help us, right? So even though our claims were, negative to the reserve fund by $1.3 million, the $475,000 actually helps increase the, to the extent that claims exceeded our contributions. So if you net that out, we're down about $800,000 for the year.
Thanks, Vin. I just, I remember our conversations during those budget meetings, and I remain a little nervous that we aren't more conservative with this fund, and to keep it more, because you say it should, I hope that it normalizes, but perhaps this is the new normal, like many other things we're experiencing. So thanks for keeping us on track with all of this. Because I know that you look at it carefully and you advise us carefully.
Yeah, I mean, if there's a little bit of a ray of hope, it's that in the, we were really unusual to a lot of different, municipalities and organizations this year. A lot of, claims went down for a lot of organizations because, of COVID, elective surgeries and procedures, that would have ordinarily occurred, people even, pause before going to the doctor for their visits. So it was an unusual year for us. And, there is some optimism that claims won't be extraordinary next year, just base claims. So if that's the case and we get, a little lucky with the large claims, we should be okay. But again, I think the most important thing, we do have 3 months of reserves. I don't want you to lose any sleep at night over this, because those reserves are there for a reason. It's to buoy us if we do have, a large claim event year next year. It's the funding in the following fiscal year. If we run through the reserves in 2021, we're going to have to increase the operating budget to bring up the medical benefits contributions monthly.
Thank you again.
You're welcome.
Andrew, you had a question.
I'm actually good. He answered my question. Thank you, Vin.
You're welcome.
Faith.
Hey, just so you know, I'm not texting, I'm reading your report here. So these $1 million claims, are they individual claims or are they cumulative claims? And I'm just curious, how rigorous is our case management program in terms of just helping us contain costs, as well as ensuring that whoever these folks are getting the most efficient, and I don't mean that in the negative way, but efficient and appropriate care?
Well, just to answer the first part of the question, which is, are these, these are individual, when I say large claims, and that $475,000 in stop loss, the way that works is when an individual employee or dependent has medical claims that are cumulative, that exceed $175,000, that's when we consider it a large claim, and that's when we start getting stop loss reimbursement from the stop loss insurance carrier. So if we have a member or a dependent who has $500,000 worth of total treatment because of a cancer diagnosis, which includes doctor visits, hospitalizations, chemotherapy or immunotherapy, that all accumulates to become a large claim. And it's not by month, it's over the course of the claim year. And for our plans, the HSA is January to December. And for our other plans, it's, it's July to June. So that's kind of the technical answer on a large claim. As far as, the medical administration and case management, we obviously rely on Cigna as our carrier to, manage those claims and claim costs. We, do have a pharmacy benefits manager that manages the pharmacy benefits. We do look at, the large claims, to make sure that they are scrutinized, so to speak. And large claims do get a second layer of review by the stop loss insurance carrier. So, I think it's fair to say that, the claims that we have are based on the need, of the individual. And like all medical costs, I think they're managed fairly aggressively in the industry these days. But I think that's the best answer I could give you on that. I mean, we do rely on, the carrier, our broker, and our, pharmacy benefits manager to help us, keep claim costs in line with the treatment that's needed.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Tim, you had a question.
Yeah, thanks. So I hope I didn't miss this, but with regard to the early teacher retirement incentive, this is where it hits, correct?
To the extent that teachers decided on the medical benefits option, is
Okay.
that your question?
Yeah, basically. I mean, there was an incentive. This is the incentive bucket right here, right?
No, the incentive was a choice. So teachers can choose to take cash, or they
Oh.
can choose to stay in our medical benefits plan. And most teachers did take the cash option.
Okay.
I believe there were 5 teachers that elected to stay in medical benefits, and they can only stay in. We'll pay for 1 year under the incentive, but they do have to go on Medicare when they're age 65. So, they can't stay in our medical benefits plan forever.
All right. So just with respect to this year, there's 5 or fewer teachers who are here, and you have 700 staff
Yeah.
with different medical plans.
About 500 employees participate in the medical benefit plans.
All right. So we're talking about a 1% impact on there, which it's real dollars, but it's frankly, it's immaterial. 1% is immaterial to the big number.
Right. Well,
It's not, no, but I mean, from an
yeah,
accounting
look at
perspective.
it on an average claim basis.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay. All right. That's it. Thank you.
you're welcome.
Are there any other questions on this issue? Okay, Vin, why don't you continue on?
Okay. So now I'm going to share my screen again and just give you an update on where we are at the end of the year. Today is June 30th. It is the last day of the fiscal year. This is the memo that was shared with the board members last night from superintendent. Normally at this meeting, we do fiscal year-end transfers. This year is a little bit unusual because we actually don't have to transfer between budget lines. And if you could see my screen here, you could see that the ending balance in salaries, benefits, instructional expense, support service, operations and maintenance, all those individual line items were under budget. And if you add the total, it's $1,247,600. I just want to put a little bit of context around what each of these ending balance represents. So if we look at salaries, $647,863,000, that's about 1.4% of a $47.4 million budget line. So in other words, we spent 98.6% of the budget, leaving 1.4%. For benefits, This represents about 1.4% of $11 million. The 242,000 remaining in instructional expense, that represents 5.3% of $4.6 million. So from a budgetary point of view, instructional expense is the area that was the most under budget. That is somewhat by design. 152,560 in support services represents about 2.3% of 6.6 million, and the 47,205 remaining in operations and maintenance, it's 1.3%. So we did expend over 98% of the budget, but to the extent that we didn't spend all of the budget, that's how we wind up with the 1.247 million that's remaining. I'm going to just move on before I present the potential motions to the board. So the budget commentary, just a couple of points I'd like to make. First of all, the budget year from July 1st of 2019 through February was actually relatively good. We were on track in most of our accounts. There were really no major variances that were overly concerning. However, because of the pandemic, certainly from March to June 30th, was quite extraordinary. We had a lot of things that we needed to deal with, obviously from an educational and an operational point of view. We had a series of governor's orders and legislative mandates that all school districts, including Cheshire, were obligated to follow. We were in remote learning, for all our students from March 13th through June 11th, when the school year ended for our students. As the board members know, we started a grab and go emergency food service distribution March 18th that ended June 8th. And then on March 25th, most of our employees began working from home in line with the governor's stay safe, stay home executive order. So to a large extent, the 1.2 million that we didn't spend in our budget is related to savings, from that period. And, not to rehash, because I know all the board members have heard this, but the areas where, we saved the most money were transportation, the cleaning costs, wages for additional hours and overtime, the coaching stipends because there was no spring sports season. And then we also had significant savings in electricity in particular. That savings was around $200,000, as well as our heat and energy accounts. The few things that I want to highlight also, which are final expenditures or encumbrances that we made. And I'm sharing this because it puts some good perspective around what we're planning for, at least for the first few months of the new fiscal year. So you could see here, we have $84,000, dedicated to purchase and install plexiglass shields for the school offices, the nurses' offices, areas such as the library counters. We also, in that $84,000, are anticipating purchasing student desk shields, which are, cardboard devices that actually sit on a student desk that have polycarbonate panels so that the student can see out. And, assuming that we go ahead with this purchase, it would enable students to be seated at their desk, not necessarily having to wear a mask. So it allows them to work comfortably, but without having a mask. Also, in that 84,000, signage on floor decals, signage would indicate, the rules, social distancing, wearing a mask. If you have a temperature, please don't enter the building. Some of that signage is up, but we need to purchase a lot more. We're also working with, one company in particular to install floor decals. So where we have hallways that are two-way hallways, we would have signage on, applied to the floor. In the elementary schools, we're anticipating putting footsteps to point the direction of movement in the hallways. Again, this is all COVID-19 protective measures we're planning on. We've got $55,050 allocated for purchasing of PPE, as well as disinfecting wipes and sanitizer containers for all the learning spaces. This is only about a 2-month supply, the $55,000. We're not sure if the state will provide some of these items. We're waiting to hear back from CERC, which is, a quasi-governmental agency to provide some group purchase price discounts for these items. So, we know we're going to need this. We also purchased 10 portable hand wash stations to be used in our schools. So this will supplement, what we have available for bathrooms. These stations hold 7.5 gallons of water. Basically, you put them anywhere, near an electrical outlet is all they need. It has a 7.5 gallon container of water, and it's got a 7.5 gallon container for waste. So as people are washing their hands, it's basically, an item that, all that our maintenance staff would have to do is fill the water and empty the wastewater on an as-needed basis. Unemployment, we do have $75,000 allocated for unemployment costs. We finally were able to get our hands on the April bill for unemployment. From July through March, our total unemployment claims were $6,400. April's bill, not surprisingly, was $31,000, and we're anticipating about the same for the months of May and June. So we've got that set aside for unemployment. I did want to give an update also, the food and nutrition services. I had explained as we were going through Grab and Go that we may need to provide a reimbursement for the food and nutrition department. They did serve 155,030 meals to 20,768 students in 25 serving days. And we all know that program went very well. So we did have to provide a small reimbursement, this $7,365 to the food service department. And also in accordance with state requirements, the Board of Ed is responsible for any unpaid school lunch balances owed by students and parents. So we write a check to food and nutrition, but they are continuing to attempt to recover against that $1,600. And any recovery that they get gets reimbursed back to the Board of Ed's budget by food and nutrition. The $1,600 is, that balance is aggressively worked by, Madeline Diker and her food service staff. So we've had years where that balance at the end of the year was over $4,000. On the $1,600, we're estimating is probably, when it all is said and done, to be about half of that, maybe a little bit less. Last year was under $500 as an example. And then the last entry that we made yesterday to balance out to that 1.247 million was 30,863 was added to the medical benefits reserve. I'm not going to go through this other than to say that, we do have our routine maintenance and summer work planned. And, much of that is already underway. I have a couple of quick photos here. This is how we did our bid openings this spring and early part of the summer, I suppose. We did them outside, and you can see that, that's that gray-haired guy is me, and then that's a couple of vendors that showed, and that's Rich Clavette, our facilities manager. This is the PPE distribution. These are the Chesprocott employees. This is Cheshire High School. They've been doing PPE distribution to other health districts every Tuesday. This is an impressive picture. This is Darcy School. That's a 10,000 gallon underground oil storage tank that was removed. This is a panoramic picture. You could see Darcy School in the background. That project is going well. There was no soil contamination, I'm pleased to report. This is our SignPro representative with our staff, walking through Highland School, preparing for the plexiglass shields and the floor decals. those are the items at Highland School that have been collected. It's books, it's textbooks, and it's Chromebooks that will be sorted through and prepped. Highland, we're redoing the gym floor. And finally, this is Cheshire High School. This is the high school window replacement project that is underway. So I think I'm going to stop sharing for a minute there. Sorry that took so long, but that's about as quick as I could go to give the board a sense of, where we are with the fiscal year end, the projects that we have and the money that we have parked so that we can, start off the new year in this pandemic mode, somewhat prepared at least for the purchase of the items that we need to purchase.
Thank you, Vin. I see there's a few questions out there. I'll kick it off with my own. I saw in your list of final expenditures, there, because I have a little bit of knowledge in this, there seem to be 3 items, a lot of your PPE purchases and a lot of the items you're using to prepare the schools for the fall may qualify for FEMA funding and/or additional CARES funding. And I was wondering, and I know that sometimes towns can apply individually, and I wasn't sure if Cheshire had begun the process to file for reimbursement for any of those expenditures. It looked to be about 150,000. I was wondering if the town and/or the school system can independently apply, or are we tied to the state as far as what they're choosing to dole out?
So on the FEMA reimbursement specifically, like other past FEMA reimbursements, we work with the town finance department, and we submit our claims, jointly. Honestly, I'm not sure what qualifies and doesn't qualify for FEMA reimbursement at this point in time. I'm hoping a lot. I'm hoping even some of that unemployment claim activity will qualify, but that's yet to be, determined and announced. But we will be filing FEMA claims. We are tracking, all the costs related to the pandemic, that include purchases. We don't have, typically with FEMA reimbursements, and the example I'll give you is if there's a snowstorm, that there is FEMA reimbursement. Typically, the reimbursement is around overtime and labor costs, some equipment costs. We really don't have any labor costs under this FEMA reimbursement. So this is rather unusual. As far as the CARES Act money that you asked about, Adam, that's about $99,000 that we would expect to receive. That application, I believe, has been started. I don't, I'll defer to Jeff and Marlene, but that 99,000 can be used for whatever purpose. It doesn't need to necessarily be used for PPE. It's not limited, for its intended use. Certainly, we'll put the $100,000 to good use. I would anticipate it might be used on the instructional side, but that remains to be decided.
For yes, and I guess for your information, I asked about the FEMA money because I was on a conference call for that sort of thing, and FEMA had decided that basically any COVID expense, such as at least the first 3 items, were considered disaster recovery.
Good.
And that you could be eligible. I don't know if it was 100%. I think it might have been 75% reimbursement for those types of expenditures. So, and they're running through DEMIS. I think they're the agency that's kind of handling all the paperwork for that. So
Yeah.
just for your information, I don't know if you can check on it yourself or if it's got to be the town, but
No,
it seems like they're really eager to give money for COVID related, especially plexiglass, hand washing, all that kind of stuff.
yeah, we've been in touch. The DEMIS coordinator for Region 2 that we're in, I mean, DEMIS has been providing PPE for our emergency services primarily. We've asked a couple of times now, if they're going to start providing PPE to boards of ed, and the answer has been no so far. But, you know, Jack Kasner is the town's emergency coordinator, and, you know, we do have a weekly call, you know, with Jack and some of the other town officials. So that's an issue, or that's a topic that keeps coming up because, you know, the commitment to PPE, you know, as I indicated, is about $55,000. That's just a 2-month supply. And it would be certainly better financially if the Demas or, you know, some other state agency provides the PPE. So, you know, we're in it's a little bit of a dilemma for us because we can't wait too much longer to order the PPE that, you know, we've allocated the funding for. We are waiting for, you know, a couple of the state quasi agencies. CERC is it the Special Education Regional Council? What does that stand
Resource
for?
Center.
Research Center.
Of
So,
course, yeah.
you know, we're waiting to see if they give us some better pricing. I mean, right now, you know, I think surgical masks, face shields we could get. The things that are going to be difficult to get are gloves, sanitizing wipes, and hand sanitizer. It's okay right now, so we're going to have to start ordering some of those items pretty quickly within the next, I would say, 10 days.
Okay, thank you. Let's see.
You're welcome.
I think Catherine, you were first.
Thanks. Thank you. So I guess my question is my question was, should we be using more of the surplus to anticipate higher costs that we kind of know is coming? But since I wasn't really aware of the reimbursement possibilities, if we do get reimbursement for like the PPE purchases that we make or whatever, does that money come back to the Board of Ed or does that end up going back to the town? I'm just trying to understand if those funds would then be available to, you know, pay for more equipment or things that we end up needing after the first 2 months, for example. I guess
Well,
that's my question.
Yeah, I mean, we would certainly lobby to get those funds, you know, back so we could buy, you know, additional PPE or whatever costs we need to cover. You know, I will throw out one more thing, that there is we've got about $200,000 in the building capital non-recurring, you know, we call it the emergency fund.
Mhm.
That we have to go appeal or request from the town council. Even though it's, you know, it's the building fund, if we were really in a pinch, we could use that. And the other thing, FEMA reimbursements generally take a long time. So
Right.
you know, we probably
Well, I
want
didn't know if the CARES Act would be, you know, funds from the CARES Act will be coming more quickly than the FEMA or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. And then the other thing, just kind of on a related note, when we start the new fiscal year, we are, as the board knows, we usually start our fiscal year and we allow up to 60%, usually 60% of our non-payroll items to be, non-payroll lines to be expended. This year, we're starting at 40%. You know, we're going out with a hiring freeze. So we're going to be very, very conservative for obvious reasons as we start the fiscal year, and we'll certainly have to prioritize. You know, the governor's document was released yesterday, and you know, I haven't gone through it yet, but you know, our potential expenses can be in a number of places. It could be PPE if we need to hire additional bus aides or instructional assistants, depending on how we set up classes next year. There certainly is the potential for costs that aren't anticipated, and the only way we can counter that right now is start with the very low expenditure ceiling on our non-payroll accounts.
But the surplus that we're sending back to the town, you know, at what point can we, I find this crazy, but so we're sending $1 million back to the town when we know we're likely to need at least some of that. And that will just mean that we have to go to the town council and ask for them to allocate it back to us at some point. I mean, is that how it will end up?
Well, we also have a $200,000
Right.
fund to help mitigate some of that. You know, I mentioned last night, we're initiating our fall reopening meetings today. So I think by the end of next week or the following week, we will have a little bit more clarity about, at least from an operational perspective, what some of our needs may be. And I think that'll also have to be calculated. Our conversations with the council about how to support our school system through this pandemic are not over. I think that's definitely fair to say.
Okay, thank you.
Anne, you had a comment.
I just wanted to say that whenever we come into these end of the year fiscal reckoning meetings, I am reminded that I need to express my great appreciation to you, Vin, because the attention that you pay to these accounts and the magic that you perform to make this all happen, it does help me to sleep at night throughout the whole year. So I just want to express great appreciation for what you do and how you keep us on track fiscally. So thank you.
Well, thank you. And I will just comment back, you know, thanks for that, Ann. It's not magic. You know, I do have some really good staff that helps with this. I mean, you know, this year we had about 2,460 purchase orders. You know, I know we look at 5 line items in this meeting, but there's about 910 accounts that those 2,500 purchase orders are issued against. So it's just a lot of detail work. And it's always, you know, our budget is a series of trade-off decisions as we manage our expenditures. So I wish it was magic, but it isn't. It's just looking at it and trying to be responsible about where our expenditures go. So I appreciate.
I should have said you make it look like magic.
Okay, I'll take that.
And thank you to your staff as well, because I know that it's not just one person.
Yeah.
Andrew, you had a question.
Sure. Vin, you said there's 242,000 in instructional expense savings. Could you just highlight what some of those are? Seems like a lot of money. I understand. I mean, because there's a salary line item where the money was saved and other items. I was just wondering what instructional, is that out of district training? What is that?
So the line items where we had the largest pickup in instructional, in the instructional line, we had 99,000 of the 242,000 came from instructional supply, which is, you know, items that range from music, art, classroom supplies, you know, things like crayons and pencils. Those are primarily in the hands of the school principals. So when we apply, you know, what we allowed the principals to expend was 80% of that line, like it's one of the non-payroll lines. So the actual expenditure was 81% of 513,000. The second largest savings in that group was textbooks software, which was 48,000. So we did spend 89% of that line. Curriculum materials, we had 25,000 in savings. Library media supplies was 19,400. So it's primarily items that we, you know, would use inside the classroom and inside the schools. And, you know, I will, you know, comment that, you know, the principals, when we say you can expend 80%, what they do is what we do on the district level is they prioritize, you know, what are the things that they need and what are the things that they can do without, you know, for the fiscal year. So I don't want to leave the impression that we're not supplying anything that's necessary. We're just prioritizing what we can afford.
Got it. And then one other question. Is there a limit? So you spent there was $253,000, if my math is correct, of end of year expenditures for the COVID. Is there a limit set on how much can be spent? Or is that just what we were able to spend by June 30th or encumber by June 30th? Like, if we had to have spent, an extra couple $100,000 in order to outfit the schools, if we had more time, could we have done that, or is there a limit that's set?
No, the limit in this case, in this year, which is unusual,
Right.
the limit is we needed to leave $1,247,600 as our year-end fiscal balance. As far as what we expended we either expended or encumbered for purchase of, there is no limit. And so if you look at the list of accounts, you'll see that some accounts are under budget, but some accounts we overexpended. One of the overexpended accounts was capital equipment because, we did need to buy additional Chromebooks, which, I believe Marlene presented to the curriculum committee and it went to the board. We know we're going to need Chromebooks for next year, to replace some of the ones that are no longer, they're past Google's support period, but also to put more Chromebooks into the hands of our teachers and our students in case we need to go back to remote. So it's that same series of, what are the things that we need? What are the priorities? The $75,000 for unemployment, that was we really didn't have a choice there. We needed to encumber that money to expend it. So yeah, the cap is only what we have in total to spend. And in a normal year, we would be looking to balance the accounts to zero. Again, this was an extraordinary year, but it's the same theory. If we overexpend in, one of our line items, such as instructional supply, we have to make it up somewhere else, whether it's operations and maintenance or support services.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
Tim, you had a comment?
Yeah. So, Vin, thank you for all this. And with regard to the reopening, you obviously need to follow the law and provide a safe environment. I also, in terms of prioritizing your spending, I want you to be realistic about behaviors and what you actually can change and what you will not be able to change. I mentioned last night at the meeting that some American Pediatrics group is, saying, does it make sense? They're questioning whether it makes sense for little kids to wear face masks because they're going to touch their face anyway. And you're not going to be able to control that sort of thing. And you also mentioned about, I think, buying the stickers for the floors.
Yeah.
Telling the schools which direction to go. And I'm thinking really the high school where you have the 8. And I just wondered, I think it's a nice idea, but the student who's supposed to go that way and walk half a mile to get all the way around rather than walking to the room next door, just keep those things in mind before you go spending, large sums of money on anything. And then I do have a question. You'd mentioned encumbrances. With regard to, do you have any encumbrances that are more than 18 months old? Just off the top of your head, do you happen to know that?
No. I mean,
okay, everything should pretty much be within the past year.
Usually it's we only keep encumbrances for the first 6 months of the year is really our max. So by December, those encumbrances have to be spent. Otherwise, they get closed, and they actually, they do go back to the town's general fund in that case. But yeah.
Okay, I just asked because I think the town has encumbrances that can be out there for years, but it's probably capital project related. I'm not sure.
Capital projects are different, right? But operating budget, no, those encumbrances have to get closed.
Do the schools have any capital project encumbrances that stay out there? Or does it go back to the town and leave the schools?
Yeah, no, capital budget. So let's use an example. We have, capital budget appropriation for district-wide roof repairs. And usually those allocations are $125,000. So if we spend $80,000 to do roof repairs and we don't need roof repairs for 2 more years, that capital funding stays in that capital account until either it's expended or until we make a request to have the town's finance department close it out. And that's usually done by council action. So,
Okay.
yeah, but we can't carry over our operating budget encumbrances past, certainly past the fiscal year.
Okay. Okay. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Faith, question?
Yeah, thank you. And Vin, thank you too. I echo Ann's comments. It's really amazing what you and your staff can do in terms of this budget. With regard to the PPE, or 55,000 is for worth of coverage, PPE equipment, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so, I mean, it, 10 months, if that's, we're gonna blow that $200,000 out of the water, but, is that simply covering staff, or are we anticipating that we are also going to be providing PPE for all students? And is, 55,000, sufficient, 26,000 per month, is that sufficient?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I don't want to bore you with all the details. So we put together a worksheet, and we laid out on that worksheet by school how many students we have per school, how many staff we have per school, the type of staff that we have per school. So if you look at that PPE, what we assumed, as an example, for surgical masks, we assumed one surgical mask per week for everyone, students and staff. We don't know what we're going to go through. I mean, certainly the line I've been using is, BYOM, bring your own mask.
Right.
But we can't be in a position where we don't have a mask if somebody doesn't have a mask and they need to wear a mask, which apparently is part of this governor's requirement. For hand sanitizer, we have 400 learning spaces, which is classrooms, libraries, resource rooms, whatever. So we assumed one container of hand sanitizer per learning space per week. It's a guess. It was, a way for us to come up with what we think we need to order. I'm not sure how much of that we'll use. KN or N95 masks, we only are ordering a few hundred of those for our, maintenance and other staff. So, depending on the commodity item, I'll call it, we used an estimate. So some is for students, some is staff, and some is for just limited staff.
Okay.
And,
And if I could follow up, if that's okay, Adam, I have just a couple others.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so just initial quick read of that report that came out yesterday. Heavy emphasis on equity. Also for Marlene and Jeff, are we confident that work from beginning in March satisfy the equity? Everyone has access, appropriate access to Wi-Fi and hardware, or are we anticipating that we have to go and provide even more in one way or another?
Well, as you know, we've moved for next year to a device per student, which I think we were already there we found a way to patchwork, make it work this past spring, including the distribution of hotspots, wireless hotspots to people who needed them and things like that. So if it's possible to even build on that level of access, we have done that. And we will continue to be sensitive to people who need Wi-Fi in the home if we're doing a remote situation. But, our goal, as I've said before, is to get every child what they need, and not, in our mind, equity isn't equal to everybody. It's getting kids what they need. So that's what we're working toward.
Okay. All right. And I don't know if I would just like it restated again, why of the, I don't know. You know, it's clear we need more than $200,000, and perhaps I need a refresher as to why, if that language regarding the special fund was up to 2% of the budget, only 200 out of our 1.2, saying if someone might be able to refresh my memory for that one.
Yeah, it's a combination of town budgeting and what we're looking at in terms of needs for special education supports and more. I mean, the reality is this is really ever evolving. That, you know, until yesterday, we didn't know what exactly the needs were for mask wearing and things like that. So it's definitely a challenge to hit this moving target. And as I said, you know, moments ago, that I don't think our conversations with the council about the resources necessary to facilitate what's in that state report to the greatest extent possible, keep our kids to the safe to the greatest extent possible, as well as educate them. You know, that's evolved. It will continue to evolve throughout the year. And, you know, we're going to need to continue contact with the council about any sort of resources we may need to address that. I know there is, you know, Tony said last night, you know, concerned about that as well.
Okay, are there any other questions for Vin or Jeff on this topic? Is there a hand? Ann. Oh, I'm sorry, I missed you. Ann, go ahead.
No, I just put it in there. Thank you. Going off what Faith said, my question is, because this this idea of access for all is really important, and I thank you, Faith, for bringing it up. But I also think that we do a pretty good job here in Cheshire with that. But what about statewide? Are we getting funds? Are all towns, all school districts getting some funds based on need to get all of our children in the entire state to where they need to be with this access to internet and access to devices that let children participate in school when we're in these emergency situations? So I'm just wondering, Faith's comment got me to thinking, what's the state funding involvement in all of what we're doing?
Beyond CARES money, I mean, that's federal money anyway. Cheshire hasn't been contacted about any sort of resources, but I know Alliance districts, those are districts with more significant socioeconomic needs. Those districts have been provided technology and additional resources necessary to provide greater equity access.
So there is some of that out there.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm seeing no additional questions. So we have several motions here that we're sort of discussing on the periphery a little bit. I guess I'll read the first motion. That the Board of Education requests that the Cheshire Town Council deposit $200,000 of the remaining $1,247,600 fiscal year end balance to the non-lapsing unexpended education funds account. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Is there a discussion on the motion? Seeing no discussion. All in favor of the motion? Aye.
Aye.
Let's see. I believe that is unanimous of those voting. Okay. Thank you. The second motion, move that the Board of Education returns $1,047,600 of the $1,247,600 remaining fiscal year-end balance to the town's general fund. Is there a second?
Oh.
Faith, we'll go Faith seconds. Is there a discussion on this motion? Seeing no discussion, all in favor? Looks like that is unanimous. Okay, thank you. There is no old business, and there's a chairperson's report. The chairperson is not here, and I was not provided with any additional report. Jeff, did you have anything to add? Is there any additional report from you?
There is not.
Okay. We had something about executive session, but it looks like I believe we handled this yesterday evening, so I don't think there's any need for an executive session. Was there any other new business that anyone wanted to bring up? Andrew,
I just,
see your hand up.
yeah, I wasn't able to, we had a school modernization committee meeting, a very brief one on Wednesday, the 24th.
Oh.
I just wanted to put out there that we met and we hired a firm by the name of Milone McBroom to do an enrollment study to help with the facility planning. So there were two bids that were received. One was from Milone McBroom and the other one was from NESDEC and Colliers, who is our project manager assistant. They highly recommended Milone McBroom. They were a little bit more expensive, but the other proposal that was submitted did not have the mapping, which came highly recommended by Colliers that we do include that in the proposal. So I believe they're under contract, Vin, for $19,720. And we'll be expecting some new enrollment studies and projections in the next 4 months or so.
Correct.
That out there. It's a very brief 30-minute meeting, but they are getting some work done. So I just want to provide that update to everybody.
Great. Thank you, Andrew.
I'd like to add to that. The reason that the meeting was so brief was because it was just a one-item agenda for the purposes of hiring that enrollment study. But this committee is on hiatus and will not be meeting again until the issue that we have presented to the town council is resolved. And I just wanted to inform this group that that committee is not meeting until we resolve the issue of, I guess it's a personnel issue is what it's considered, so. But that was an emergency meeting.
Adam, you're on mute.
Thank you. So is there any additional topic under new business? Okay.
Adam?
Oh, Tim, always at the end. Okay, Tim, what you got?
No, so I'm not. So I don't know if Ann could elaborate on that. But my question really is for Andrew. Who did the last enrollment projection? Was it Milone McBroom or something?
No, Urbanomics.
Okay, it's a different firm. Okay, Milone McBroom is Cheshire's Milone McBroom, right?
Yes, yeah, and it was, there was a lot of discussion at the meeting, but they do have kind of the pulse on the town. They do know that the development trends, they help with the plan of conservation and development, where new developments may be going in order to help. They really, that experience is pretty invaluable to the process, so.
Okay, cool. Thank you, Andrew. Thanks, Adam.
Thank you, Tim. Okay, seeing nothing else, I'd like to entertain a motion to adjourn. Anyone? Catherine, is there a second? All right, all in favor? Great. Thank you, everyone. Our final meeting of this year. Of course, July 1st begins tomorrow, so then who knows what happens after that.
Yeah.
So thanks, everyone, and we'll see you next time.
Enjoy your day, everybody.